I can still remember those days where I was shopping for my very first video camera. Visiting stores to test cameras, collecting brand brochures, looking for available reviews. Back then, the usual decision-making process. Both photo and video gear has reached such a high level. Cameras are fully packed with features. Lenses are getting faster, sharper and smaller. And all this for an affordable price too. So having all these great cameras, lenses and great features within hand's reach makes it way easier to buy yourself a good camera. At least that's what you would think. The fact that cameras are getting better and better makes it even more difficult to make a good decision with 100% certainty. The functionalities are endless. You don't have to pick one function over the other, since you can have both now. So, is there still value in camera reviews? And then this camera came. The new S1RII. And to be honest, I did have my doubts of making a video, simply because the current lineup is already so good. And looking at their original lineup, this is their photo flagship model, not their video flagship model. But for some reason, I kept receiving messages on my socials with questions about specific features of this camera. And some also asked if I have experienced any issues mentioned by other reviewers and what advice I would give them whether to buy it or not. And all these messages kinda made me more interested and curious. So I decided to take the S1RII for a spin to see if I also have these so-called issues. But then, while filming with it, I noticed that even though it's their flagship model for photography, it has some very interesting features that would make this S1RII a very good pick for video and filmmakers. So let's start with the obvious. The first ever in Lumix, the 8K resolution video. Most of us won't need it at this moment, but since it's a camera and that's an investment for years, it's very assumable that 8K will be of use in the near future, and therefore it's future-proof. But what I think is even more interesting is the fact that you can record 8K internally on all card media. So you can decide whether to use the CF Express, SD card, or even an external SSD. There are only limitations when shooting ProRes. Then for higher output and resolution you can only use the CF Express or an SSD, but there is more. You can even record 5K RAW HQ internal, without any other accessory, just the camera and the CF Express card in it. For cinematography, there's one feature that's essential, at least to me, and that's open gate. This lets you take fully advantage of the full frame sensor recording, which result in having more height in your shot. This extra resolution could be used for cropping in post. But its true purpose, of course, is in the usage of anamorphic lenses. For me, being an anamorphic shooter, this truly is a must-have. The S1RII offers open gates in a high 6.4K resolution with an aspect ratio of 3:2. But they already announced that in the next firmware update, 8K open gate will be possible. Another very welcome feature in the S1RII is having false color, where the different levels of exposure are visualized in different colors, making it easier to check exposure even in bright surroundings. But I do prefer to have the color index on the side of the screen instead of having to go back in the menu to check the exposure values for each color. And also, not every color is present in the color index. It's good to mention that not everything needs to be shot in V-Log. And now they added a new photo style to the SIRUI family, SIRUI A2. Personally, I think this is the best because it nicely fits between the SIRUI D2 and the SIRUI V2. So where V2 was too strong and D2 was a bit too soft, now you got A2. But of course you can also use your own LUTs. With real-time LUT they will be burned straight into your footage. Depending on your shooting style, stabilization could be very valuable for filmmaking, and Lumix maintains to be the frontrunner in stabilization. They even succeeded to increase it now with one stop, which comes down to 8 stops in total, so gimbal-like shots are even easier to create now. And in case stronger stabilization is needed, they now got cropless electronic stabilization. Even though output specs are very important, we mustn't forget the camera simply is a tool, like a hammer or a Swiss knife. So we should also pay close attention to the camera's design, the button layout, the size, the tool as it is. So let's look at some design features that are great for filmmaking, starting with the KEYLIGHTS and the red record frame. These are so important for both yourself and the subject that you're filming. Both can see it's recording or not, and in case of multicam shooting, the subject can easily see which camera is recording, so it helps them to focus. And filming in different angles is like filmmaking 101. So that's why having a 3-angle LCD screen is so important. We should be able to put the tool, the camera, in the wanted position and angle and still be possible to monitor the shot. Having a built-in 3-angle monitor is great for shooting with a minimalistic setup. So all in all, this camera is great, but I did experience a few things that stood out. So let's start with that overheating issue mentioned by other reviewers. For me, it's totally not the case. I tested 8K recording on a full battery with stabilization on, a CF Express card in it, and V-Log in 20 degrees room. After 1 hour the battery died and the camera felt warm, but definitely not hot, like with other brands. And then that other issue mentioned by other reviewers, the rolling shutter. This is also a bit of a nonsense. By that I mean it's no different from the results on the S5 II, the S5 IIX and the S9. So why this gets negativity, I'm not sure. I do think it's an issue for shooters doing lots of moving shots with high resolution and high frame rates. And another thing that I mentioned is the fact that it's not always using the full frame sensor. So when shooting RAW it uses pixel to pixel and that's not covering the whole sensor as you can see here. And there are more crops, for instance when using 4K and Cinema 4K 60p. And it's even cropped more when using full frame 120p. But keep in mind these crops are tiny. Definitely not like an APS-C crop. Talking about RAW, also the RAW compatibility could be an issue. So it delivers ProRes RAW only, and that works with Final Cut. It's not properly working with Premiere Pro, kinda limited, and working with DaVinci Resolve, it only gives an audio file, even though you're importing the video file. And then the dynamic range. So the lowlight is quite impressive. It has more pixel count than the S5 IIX, still the noise performance and color when using extreme ISOs is better. And the noise performance gets even slightly better when using the dynamic range expansion. Not really sure if you can see the difference on YouTube. And then that new AF AI. It should recognize people better than with the S5 IIX, but I noticed that with the item that I have, that it's slower than the S5 IIX. But for the rest, the AF is definitely faster. And then the proxy recording. It's limited to only 4K, Cinema 4K 60p and full frame 120p. And for me, proxy recording is more logical when shooting high output, because then editing becomes more difficult and having a proxy file would be ideal. I don't really see any purpose of having a proxy when shooting with lower output. But I assume the reason behind these proxies are the compatibility with the platform Frame.io. But hey, we'll see what happens in the upcoming firmware updates. And that brings me to the verdict of the S1R2. The camera is great. It's a great addition to the lineup and one we've been waiting for a while now. This is their photo flagship model, not their video flagship model, but I have to say that it has so many video features that it could be a combined flagship model. But if they plan on doing an S1H2, then the issues that I mentioned should be fixed. Adding a built-in ND filter, OpenGate proxy, B-RAW, RE-Log C, and maybe even a box design with monitor.